Sarah learned that rebuilding doesn't begin with a dramatic new life. It begins with a morning, a kettle, a lunchbox, a small hand in yours. On Monday, Sarah woke before the alarm. She sat at the kitchen table and listened to the quiet. For once, quiet didn't feel like danger. It felt like a chance. She made tea and wrote 3 words in her notebook. Today I choose me. Then she packed her daughter's bag with steady hands. At the kita, Sarah lingered for an extra breath before letting go. Her daughter ran inside without looking back, trusting that Mama would still be Mama when she returned. At work, Sarah handled deadlines and meetings like she always had. But now she made space for one new habit. She checked in with herself. How does my body feel? What do I need? It was strange at first, like speaking a language she used to know. In the evening, she walked home through Hamburg streets and noticed something new. The city had room for her. She didn't have to earn space. She could take it. Rebuilding also meant grieving, not just the relationship, the dream, the version of love Sarah tried to build by being smaller and smaller. One night after her daughter slept, Sarah sat on the living room floor and let the grief come. It wasn't loud, it was heavy. She thought of the early years, how he could be charming, how she could mistake intensity for devotion. She thought of the years after, the rules, the criticism, the way her opinions became problems. Sarah pressed her forehead to her knees and whispered, "I tried." And she meant it. She didn't need to punish herself for staying. She needed to honor the part of her that survived. The next day she told Maya quietly, "Some days I miss him, or maybe I miss who I hoped he was." Maya nodded. Missing doesn't mean it was safe. That sentence landed like a blanket. Sarah repeated it later when guilt rose. Missing doesn't mean it was safe, and safety was not too much to ask. Safety was the minimum. Sarah began building stability the way you build a bridge, one plank at a time. She created a small rhythm: breakfast together, daycare, work, dinner, bedtime story, and one quiet moment for herself. Sometimes that quiet moment was 5 minutes by the window. Sometimes it was a shower where she let the water remind her she had a body, not just responsibilities. She stopped trying to be perfect. She started trying to be present. Her daughter noticed. "Mama, you're smiling," her daughter said one afternoon, as if it were new information. Sarah swallowed. "Yes," she said, and it felt like truth. At work, Sarah asked for a small adjustment in her schedule. Nothing dramatic, just a choice that honored her life. She didn't apologize for it. The world didn't collapse. It held. That was one of Sarah's biggest lessons. When you stop living for someone's approval, your life doesn't end. It begins. Hamburg rain came and went, and Sarah remained, steady, learning, growing. Rebuilding also meant reclaiming identity. Sarah realized she had stopped doing things she loved, not because anyone banned them, but because her nervous system was always bracing. So she chose one small return. On Saturday, she took her daughter to a library event. There were cushions on the floor and a storyteller with a gentle voice. Sarah watched her daughter listen, eyes bright, safe in curiosity. Afterward, they bought a small plant for their windowsill, another one. Not because Sarah wanted a perfect home, because she wanted a living symbol. At home, her husband criticized the plant. Another useless thing. Sara didn't explain. She placed the plant beside the basil and said to her daughter, "We're taking care of things that grow." Her daughter clapped. Later, Sara took a photo of the two plants and sent it to her family in Spain. Her mother replied with a heart. Sara felt the ache of distance, but she also felt something else, connection, not isolation. Rebuilding didn't mean being alone. It meant choosing the people and places that helped her stay herself. Some days were hard. On hard days, Sara's mind tried to bargain. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I should have tried more. Maybe I'm selfish. On those days, Sara returned to what she had learned. Clarity is power. She opened her notebook and read her own words. Helping doesn't feel like fear. My feelings are data. I don't need permission to want peace. She didn't weaponize these phrases. She used them like railings on a staircase. One evening, her husband tried to pull her into shame. "You'll regret this," he said, voice low and certain. Sara's heart raced. She didn't argue the future. She didn't plead. She said calmly, "I'm focusing on a peaceful life for me and our daughter." He scoffed. Sara breathed. Afterward, she sat with her daughter and built a puzzle. Piece by piece, the picture formed. Sara realized something tender. Rebuilding doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like choosing the next right piece, again and again, until one day you look up and realize you're living inside a picture you made. Sara began noticing joy again, not the big, loud kind, the quiet kind. Her daughter's laugh in the bath, a good cup of coffee, a meeting where Sara's idea landed and people nodded, a walk where her shoulders didn't climb to her ears. On Sunday, Sara took her daughter to the Elbe and brought bread for the birds. Her daughter giggled as the birds swooped near. Sara watched them and thought of the story she once told, the bird in the golden cage. She used to think the cage was everything. Now she was learning about sky. On the way home, her daughter said, "Mama, we're happy today." Sara blinked. "Yes," she said, "we are." That night, Sara wrote in her notebook, "Happiness can be small. Happiness can be quiet. Happiness can be something I allow." She didn't pretend she was fully healed. She didn't pretend everything was solved. But she could feel the direction of her life, toward steadiness, toward self-respect, toward a home where love didn't have to be earned, a home where love simply lived. Rebuilding meant learning a new definition of strong, not pushing through, not pretending. Strong meant returning to herself when she drifted. When guilt rose, Sara didn't insult herself. She said, "Of course I feel guilty. I was trained to." When fear rose, she didn't shame it. She said, "Fear is understandable, and I can still choose peace." Sara began to imagine her future in Hamburg, a stable home, a calmer nervous system, a daughter who grows up hearing her own voice, a life built around values, not around moods. One afternoon, Sara got an email from a coworker. "Thank you for the support this week." Sara stared at it. Support. She gave it so naturally to others. Now she was learning to give it to herself. That night she stood by the window and looked at the two plants. They weren't perfect, they were alive. Sara whispered, "Me too." And for a moment she believed it with her whole body. On the final night of that week, Sara tucked her daughter in. Her daughter wrapped small arms around Sara's neck and whispered, "Mama, you're my safe." Sara's eyes filled. She kissed her daughter's forehead. "And you're mine," she said. Afterward, Sara sat alone in the quiet living room. She thought of the woman she used to be. She thought of the woman she was becoming. She realized she didn't need a perfect story to deserve a better life. She only needed honesty. She only needed support. She only needed the courage to keep choosing herself. Sara opened her notebook one last time and wrote, "Rebuilding is not one decision. Rebuilding is a daily practice." Outside, rain tapped the window. Inside, the home felt different, not finished, but changing. And Sara understood something deeply. The phoenix doesn't rise in one burst, it rises in 1,000 small returns, and tonight she had returned again.